The briefing room was silent. I looked at my team, veterans of the unexplained and the horrific. This time we were heading into the heart of darkness, a place where humanity seemed to have unraveled. Blackwood Hollow. "Gather round," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "Blackwood Hollow is under strict quarantine. There's a contagion out there, spreading fast, transmitted through bites. The infected, they're beyond saving. Our mission is to find a cure, or, at the very least, figure out what we're dealing with." Lee, always the one to find a silver lining, quipped, "Zombies in the flesh, huh?" The chopper ride to Blackwood Hollow was tense. As we descended, the village looked like a scene from a nightmare, desolate, shrouded in mist, the air heavy with an ominous silence. "We're going in armed for combat," I instructed. "Remember, the infected are walking contagions. Avoid bites at all costs." Stepping into the village was like entering another world. The mist clung to everything, distorting shapes and shadows. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional distant, inhuman scream. We moved cautiously, sweeping through the desolate streets. The first encounter with the infected was a shock, despite our preparations. A man, or what used to be one, charged at us, his eyes wild, his mouth a snarl of teeth. His humanity was long gone. Brooks took the shot, the bullet tearing through the man's skull in an instant, stopping the infected in his tracks. We delved deeper into the village. The contagion had left nothing but shadows of lives once lived. "Our focus is the cure," I reminded the team. The ghostly mist of dawn clung to Blackwood Hollow as we continued our sweep through the village. The silence was broken only by our footsteps and the distant, haunting wails of the infected. Ramirez, our sniper, kept a watchful eye from the rooftops, his rifle ready. "Anything on thermal, Ramirez?" I asked through the comms. "Negative, Captain," he replied. "The mist is playing tricks on the sensors." Brooks, Lee, Davis, and I moved in a tight formation, our weapons at the ready. Every shadow seemed to conceal a potential threat, every abandoned home a testament to the tragedy that had unfolded here. We approached what appeared to be the town hall, its once grand facade now marred by the contagion's touch. The door hung ajar, creaking ominously in the gentle wind. "Let's check for any records, anything that might give us a lead," I said, pushing the door open with the barrel of my rifle. The inside was a scene of disarray. Papers strewn about, furniture overturned. It was clear the contagion had caused panic here before it devolved into violence. Lee began sifting through the papers on the mayor's desk while Brooks covered the entrance. Davis and I searched the rest of the building. "Captain, you need to see this," Davis called out from a back room. I made my way to him and found an array of monitors, some still flickering with static. Among them, a map of the village with several areas marked in red. "Looks like quarantine zones within the village," I mused. They were trying to contain it. A sudden crackle from the radio interrupted us. "Contact," Ramirez's voice was tense. "Multiple hostiles approaching your position from the east." "Copy that, Ramirez." "Keep them off us as long as you can," I replied, signaling the team. "We're about to have company." We took defensive positions, the reality of our situation setting in. This wasn't just a search for answers. It was a fight for survival. The first of the infected emerged from the mist, their movements erratic and unnerving. Ramirez's sniper shots rang out, each one finding its mark. But they kept coming. "We need to pull back," I shouted, firing my rifle at the approaching horde. Brooks laid down covering fire as Lee and Davis retreated. We fell back to a more defensible position, the town hall's main hall. The infected surged towards us, their humanity lost to the contagion. We fought back relentlessly, but for each one that fell, another took its place. "We can't hold them off forever, Captain," Brooks yelled over the gunfire. I knew she was right. We needed to regroup and find another way. "Fall back," I commanded. "Ramirez, cover our exit." We retreated under Ramirez's precise covering fire, the town hall now overrun by the infected. Blackwood Hollow was more than just a quarantine zone. It was a battleground, and we were in the center of it. "Let's move," I said, leading my team away from the town hall. "We need to find that cure and get the hell out of here." The village seemed to close in around us, its secrets and horrors lurking in every shadow. But we were not done yet. The answers were here, and we were determined to find them. Under the oppressive canopy of Blackwood Hollow, our retreat from the town hall felt like a descent into deeper chaos. With the constant threat of the infected looming, each rustle and shadow sent adrenaline coursing through our veins. Ramirez, from his vantage point, provided overwatch, his voice a steady presence in our ears. "Clear path to the old church, Captain," Ramirez reported, "but I can't guarantee it'll stay that way for long." "Understood, Ramirez. We're heading there now," I replied. The church, with its sturdy stone walls, offered a temporary haven for us to regroup and reassess. As we neared the church, the undeniable evidence of the contagion's toll was everywhere. Abandoned cars littered the road, their doors ajar, engines still running. A child's tricycle lay on its side, its innocent presence a contrast to the horror surrounding it. Brooks, ever vigilant, was the first to enter, her rifle sweeping the dimly lit interior. The church was deserted, a lone candle flickering on the altar. Dust motes danced in the beams of light filtering through stained glass windows, casting eerie patterns on the pews. "We'll hold up here for a bit," I announced. "Lee, Davis, check for supplies. Brooks, secure the perimeter. I'll coordinate with Ramirez." As Lee and Davis ventured into the back rooms, Brooks took up position by the main door, her eyes scanning the outside. The silence inside the church was a slight reprieve from the chaos outside. Minutes later, Lee returned, his arms laden with canned food and bottled water. "Found these in the basement, Captain. Looks like someone was prepping for a long stay." Davis followed, holding a dusty ledger. "And I found this, Captain. It's a record of the townsfolk. Might give us some clues about how this all started." I took the ledger, flipping through its pages. Names, dates, notes on health checks, a meticulous record that abruptly ended about 2 weeks ago. The church's tranquility was shattered by the sound of gunfire outside. "Contact!" Brooks yelled, firing through the open door. I rushed to her side, my rifle at the ready. The infected had found us, their twisted forms emerging from the trees, drawn by the noise. "Ramirez, we need cover!" I barked into the radio. "On it, Captain!" His sniper shots rang out, each one buying us precious time. We fought fiercely, the church doorway a choke point holding back the wave of infected. But it was clear we couldn't stay here long. "We need to move, now!" I shouted. "Ramirez, provide cover as we exit through the back." As a team, we pushed through to the rear of the church, bursting out into a narrow alley. Ramirez's shots continued to provide cover, echoing through the village. "We're heading to the north end," I said, leading the way. "There's an old research facility there. It might hold the answers we need." We moved quickly, avoiding the main streets, sticking to alleys and backyards. The infected seemed to be everywhere, but we evaded them with stealth and precision. The research facility loomed ahead, a remnant of better times now shrouded in mystery. If there were answers to be found about the contagion, they would be within its walls. As we approached the facility, our mission weighed heavily on us. Blackwood Hollow had become a living nightmare. But we were not deterred. We were soldiers, trained for the worst. And in this forgotten village, we would confront the heart of darkness. The abandoned research facility stood like a monolith to forgotten horrors at the edge of town. Its once imposing structure was now a mere shadow, ravaged by time and neglect. We approached with caution, our senses heightened for any sign of the infected. "Ramirez, we're going in. Keep your eyes peeled for any movement," I radioed to our sniper, who had taken a position on a nearby rooftop for a clear line of sight. "Roger that, Captain. You've got cover," Ramirez responded, his voice a reassuring presence. Inside the facility, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of chemicals and decay. Brooks led the way, her weapon at the ready, scanning the darkened hallways and laboratories littered with broken glass and overturned equipment. "This place is a mess," Lee whispered, his voice barely audible over the creak of our boots on the shattered tiles. We moved deeper into the labyrinth of corridors, the eerie silence punctuated by the distant howls of the infected echoing through the village. Davis trailed behind, his eyes continuously scanning for any hidden dangers. In what appeared to be the main lab, we found our first significant clue. Amidst the chaos of scattered papers and broken vials, a series of journals lay open, their pages filled with hastily scribbled notes and complex formulas. "Looks like they were researching pathogens. Aggressive ones," Brooks noted, poring over the documents. I examined the notes, a sense of dread building within me. It seems like they were experimenting with something far beyond their control. Something that got out. The sound of breaking glass from a nearby room shattered the tense silence. We spun around, weapons raised, only to find a lone infected, once a scientist, his lab coat torn and bloodied, stumbling toward us. "Take him down," I ordered, and Brooks swiftly complied, her shot echoing in the confined space. "We need to keep moving," I said, leading the team further into the facility. "There's more to this place than meets the eye." As we delved deeper, the facility revealed its secrets in fragments. Abandoned experiments, cryptic references to a Project Nightfall, and logs of unauthorized trials. Then, we stumbled upon a chilling scene. A containment room, its glass shattered from within. Inside were remnants of what looked like a quarantine zone, now eerily empty. "It looks like this is where it all started," Davis murmured, his voice tinged with disbelief. We were standing at ground zero of the contagion that had turned Blackwood Hollow into a living hell. A sudden crash from the upper floors jolted us back to reality. The infected were inside the building, drawn by the sound of our intrusion. Our retreat was a race against time, the snarls and screams of the infected growing louder as they descended upon us. We fought our way through, each step a battle for survival. As we emerged from the facility, the dim light of dawn was beginning to seep through the mist. Our situation was becoming increasingly dire. The revelations from the research facility pointed to a catastrophic mishandling of what was now an uncontrollable contagion. "Ramirez, what's your status?" I asked through the radio, my voice steady despite the rising tension. "Still got you covered, Captain, but there's movement all around. This place is swarming," Ramirez's voice crackled through, strained yet vigilant. We moved swiftly, avoiding the main streets where the infected roamed in greater numbers. The plan was to circle back to the village center to gather more intel. We needed to understand the full extent of this nightmare. Brooks led the way, her senses sharp. Lee and Davis flanked our sides, their weapons at the ready. Every shadow seemed to harbor a potential threat, every silence a prelude to chaos. As we neared the village square, the eerie calm was suddenly shattered by a blood-curdling scream. A group of infected, more feral and aggressive than any we'd encountered before, charged towards us. "We're compromised," I yelled. "Engage with lethal force!" The firefight was intense and chaotic. Ramirez provided sniper support from above, picking off the infected as they swarmed our position. Despite our training and firepower, the sheer number of the infected threatened to overwhelm us. "We can't stay here," Brooks shouted, firing her rifle in controlled bursts. "Fall back to the clinic," I commanded. We fought our way through the narrow alleys, the infected in relentless pursuit. Reaching the clinic, we quickly secured the entrance, barricading the doors with whatever we could find. Amidst the chaos, a series of voice recordings caught my attention. Pressing play, we listened to the final entries of the village doctor, a mix of desperation and fear evident in his voice. He spoke of an experimental pathogen, supposed to be a breakthrough in neurological treatment, but something had gone horribly wrong. "The pathogen, it's altering their minds, making them aggressive beyond reason. We can't contain it." The doctor's voice trailed off into a mess of static and screams. The recordings were a chilling testament to the horror that had unfolded. This contagion wasn't just a biological threat. It was a breakdown of human nature itself. "Captain, we've got more incoming," Davis warned, peering through the barricaded windows. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the next move. We need to transmit this information back to command. They need to know what we're dealing with. As Lee set up the comms to send the recordings, the infected battered against the clinic doors, their snarls and screams a relentless symphony of terror. "We're not going to hold them off for long," Brooks said, checking her ammo. "Then we make every second count," I replied. "Ramirez, we're going to need an exit strategy soon." "Copy, Captain. I've got eyes on a possible exfil route, but it's going to be hot." We prepared ourselves for the inevitable breach, knowing that the fight was far from over. The truth about Blackwood Hollow's contagion had been unearthed, but our mission was far from complete. The shadows of the village held more secrets, and it was up to us to bring them to light, if we could survive long enough to do so. Ramirez's voice crackled through the radio, a lifeline in the encroaching darkness. "Exfil route is ready, Captain. But you've got a sea of hostiles between you and me," he reported, the strain in his voice evident. "Understood, Ramirez. We'll make a break for it on my mark," I replied, loading a fresh magazine into my rifle. Lee, having successfully transmitted the doctor's recordings to command, looked up. "Data's sent, Captain. Command's got everything we found." Brooks, peering through the window, turned to us. "They're breaking through." The infected burst through the barricades like a dam giving way to a flood. We opened fire, our training kicking in, each shot precise and calculated. But for every infected that fell, 2 more took its place. "Fall back to the rear exit," I yelled over the gunfire. "Move!" We retreated through the clinic, the infected in hot pursuit. Davis led the way, clearing a path to the back door. Once outside, we found ourselves in a narrow alley, the moans and screams of the infected echoing off the walls. The air was thick with the stench of decay and death. "Ramirez, we're heading your way. Cover us," I said as we sprinted down the alley. The sniper's shots rang out from above, his accuracy providing us with a much-needed advantage. But the infected were relentless, emerging from every shadow, every corner. We fought our way through, each step a battle for survival. The alley opened up to a wider street where Ramirez had identified an extraction point. "There, the rooftop. We'll get a better vantage point to hold them off." I pointed to a fire escape ladder on a nearby building. As we climbed, the horde of infected grew larger, their numbers seemingly endless. Reaching the rooftop, we set up a defensive perimeter, Ramirez joining us, his rifle never ceasing fire. "We need that exfil now," Brooks shouted, firing into the mass of infected below. The sound of helicopter blades cutting through the air was the most beautiful sound I'd heard in what felt like an eternity. Our extraction chopper descended, the pilot expertly maneuvering it close to the rooftop. "This is it! Move!" I commanded as we boarded the chopper under a hail of gunfire. As the chopper cut through the sky, leaving the forsaken village of Blackwood Hollow far behind, a silence enveloped us. The horror we had witnessed and the lives lost to the contagion weighed heavily on our hearts. We had faced the unimaginable, and though we had survived, the battle had left scars that ran deep. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from command," Lee announced, breaking the heavy silence. He handed me the headset, his expression grim. I took the headset, steeling myself for the conversation. "This is Captain Mendoza. Report," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Captain, your team's findings have been invaluable. We're mobilizing a response team to Blackwood Hollow. Your intel has given us a fighting chance to contain this outbreak," came the voice from command. "Understood, sir. But there's more to it. This wasn't just an outbreak, it was something engineered," I replied, the weight of my words heavy with implication. There was a pause on the other end. "Your observations have been noted, Captain. We're looking into it. For now, your team needs to debrief and stand down. You've done your part." The call ended, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. We had done our part, but the truth about Blackwood Hollow was still shrouded in secrecy. We landed back at base, the familiar surroundings washing away the chaos we had left behind. The team dispersed, each member lost in their own thoughts, processing the events that had unfolded. Brooks approached me, her eyes reflecting the same questions that plagued my mind. "What now, Captain? We just leave it at that?" I looked at her, the resolve in my voice masking my own uncertainty. "We follow orders, Brooks, but we keep our eyes open. This isn't over, not by a long shot." In the days that followed, we debriefed with the higher-ups, recounting every detail of the mission. The higher command praised our bravery and efficiency, but the truth about Blackwood Hollow remained elusive, buried under layers of bureaucracy and secrecy. As I sat in my quarters, poring over the reports and notes we had gathered, a sense of unease gnawed at me. Blackwood Hollow was a symptom of a much larger problem, a shadow that extended far beyond the confines of that cursed village. I knew then that our fight against the contagion was just the beginning. There were darker forces at play, and we had only scratched the surface. The ties that bound us to Blackwood Hollow were not easily severed, and I sensed that our paths would cross again. For now, we had survived. But survival was only a small victory in the face of an unseen enemy. As I looked out the window at the setting sun, I made a silent vow. We would be ready for whatever came next. The nightmare of Blackwood Hollow was a warning, a call to arms, and we would answer it no matter the cost.